I see that our next speaker has arrived, and I don't want to keep him from you another minute because Chris Burns is going to join us, and Chris is going to talk about with us why your marketing sucks and how to fix it. And ever since I saw that title, I have just been going, oh, I've got to meet this man. This is just so powerful. So before I actually bring Chris on, I just want to tell you just a little bit about him, because he doesn't always approach things the way that some other people might. You know, he really believes in working with his clients and in holding them accountable and helping them so that they implement what he's teaching them. Because I don't know about you, but I have taken, we talked about this yesterday, I must have a dozen courses sitting on my digital bookshelf right now that I have not even looked at. So when we're talking to Chris, I want you to keep a few things in mind. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an author. He's an adjunct professor, a digital marketing coach, a podcaster, consultant, husband, and father of three. So Chris, I'm sure we're going to see pictures of all the kids, behind you when you're doing it. We'll expect you to tell us their names, their ages, where they are in school, all of that. But Chris has really been in marketing for 20 years, and he's helped hundreds of businesses, including his own, to scale. So Chris has a lot that he can share with us about marketing, and I'm certainly looking forward to it because I know for a fact that my marketing sucks. So I can't wait for Chris to tell us how to improve that. So Chris, let's welcome you on board. Hey there, Chris. I am so excited to have you on board, and I can't wait to hear what you have to tell us, because I know my marketing sucks. And so I want to get your wisdom.
Likewise, and thank you for having me. I apologize if it's a bit noisy over here. We have the world's largest air show happening this week.
Oh
and
my,
there's
okay.
literally 500,000 people in a town that's about 40,000 large.
Oh, wow.
And so got all kinds of war jets and fighters flying, and they're very loud, but it's a cool thing.
That's okay. I love that. And my dad was a fighter pilot. So, I love those planes flying overhead. And no, we're not hearing that interference. So you're in good shape.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And one of the things that you talked about, or what you're going to be talking to us about, is really, how we identify what's working and what isn't. How do we understand where we're going wrong?
Yeah.
There's so many options. It gets very confusing.
It is, and it can be. And so often when I'm talking to audiences, and I host a marketing summit here in my local hometown of Appleton, Wisconsin, and there's about 220 plus attendees that come every year. And the last 2 years, I've asked the question, how many people in the room have a marketing strategy? And I don't care if it's a social media strategy or anything like that. And there were about 15 to 17 hands that went up. And then I said, okay, well, keep your hand up if you have like an actual documented strategy. And a bunch of hands went down. We had about 6 people out of 220 plus. Now, the metrics on that are not looking pretty good. No. And if you don't have a plan, I call it a recipe a lot. If you don't have that, even the most simplest form, how do you know what you're supposed to be doing? How do you know what works, what doesn't, what your audience likes, what the trends are, what's driving traffic? The answer is you don't. And you don't know what to post. And so a lot of times we end up throwing things out there, things that we like. Doesn't mean our audience is going to like it. And then we go through these peaks and valleys because we're like, oh, that didn't work. That didn't work. And a lot of people will try things and they'll say, well, I tried ads. It didn't work. Well, it's because your content sucks or you didn't have a big enough budget. And there's always a reason why, but the answer is it does work. All of these things actually work, and they work exceptionally well. if you
Okay.
do them properly. And so I try to implore all of my clients and everybody I talk to focus on the things that do work and do
Mm-hmm.
them consistently. And so some things that work right now, um, and some things you're doing probably don't work and generate a lot of results. So rather than beat your head against the wall continuously, let's focus on things that are simple and easy, because that's my premise here. I want to make social media and marketing in general so easy it's fun again, and so easy you'll have no excuses. And that's my premise. And if we make it easy, your marketing won't suck.
Well, I hope you're right about that. I know that, Chris, you're right. We go out there, we hear about all these new things. I mean, there's something new every day that's out there that we can use, that we can incorporate in our marketing. How do we really, how do you get that perspective back on what's working and what isn't?
Yeah. So you have to be involved, and you have to have a strategy, because a strategy to me, when you build one, my first step is to start with an audit. And when you audit, you look at what's working and what's not.
Ah,
And you may pull a couple things out, and you may identify that, hey, posting reels, which are vertical videos, work really, really well. Posting to my news feed doesn't work. And that's true for pretty much everybody. You can post to your Facebook page or your Instagram page right now, and you'll be lucky if 5% to 10% of your followers even see your content. Now, that's not an assumption. That's not a guess. That is an actual fact. The organic reach, which means the number of people who see your post on these
mhm.
platforms, is about 5% of your followers. And the
Wow.
reason that is mostly because it's play. What I mean by that is platforms now are trying to get their businesses to advertise. And because there are so many businesses spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, Facebook has become a $175 per share stock company because
Okay.
of that. They're a $1 billion company because of their ads. And so that is how you stand out. And oh, by the way, that's another great technique to adapt into your marketing strategy, is advertising on the platform.
Okay.
But organic reach is so low that it's hardly worth the investment of time it was 5 years ago. So I'm
Okay.
not telling you not to post. I'm just saying, excuse me, that you want to reinvest that time into tactics and strategies that do work. And there are a lot of other things that we can adapt into, and I'd be happy to share all that with you.
Sure. I'd love to hear more about that.
Now, I do have a slide deck if you'd like me to go into some of
Yeah.
these things a little bit more in depth, or if you'd like to have more of a conversation about it. I'm happy
Sure.
to go either way.
Chris, why don't we go ahead and look at your slides, and then, because we have time for people to ask questions too, if they
Okay.
see something. If you pull them up, then I can put them in the stream.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I like the purple.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to skip over a couple things that we kind of already talked about. You know
Okay.
about me. I hate talking about myself, but I asked the
Wow.
question already, which is a bit of a rhetorical question. And ultimately, people ask me, it's like, why am I not seeing results? And ultimately, why is my marketing not working? And you
Hmm.
already have the answer. That's because we're not strategic with our marketing. And what's interesting about this is that so often when I've built strategies for my clients, I've focused on building the most beautiful 30-page document. And
Hmm.
so often that those strategies that people pay me a lot of money for never get used. And I've always wondered for years why, how come?
Hmm.
And it turns out that the thought of that strategy was so stressful and burdensome that they didn't even want to look at it because they knew they were behind. They knew they didn't have time to invest in it. It was too complicated. It was too much. And
Hmm.
so part of this, when I talk about a strategy, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be 10 pages or even 5 pages. The most effective strategy is 1 to 2 pages, especially if you're a small business, you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur. If this is a side hustle, that is the best thing you can have, is a very simple strategy.
Great.
So obviously, because you don't have a strategy is most likely the reason why you're here. Now, so often I hear from my clients and other people looking to elevate their business, and they say, well, Chris, we lost a couple employees we need to hire, or
Mm,
we're going into the holiday season, we're comparing our numbers to last year and we're down 10%. We have to
mhm,
advertise. Well, these businesses want to flip a switch. I call it the light switch theory, and they hope and pray that all of a sudden results will be better this time around.
mhm,
If they just run an ad, if they just post more on social media, and it doesn't work like that. That is what I call reactionary marketing rather than proactive, which, oh, by the way, is strategic marketing. You're proactive only
mhm,
because it's in your strategy, only because you've been planning on that. So, for a lot of small to medium sized companies, you know you're going to have to hire several times throughout the year. So, you might as well just have that be a part of your strategy. You might as well post about culture and talent and team building and community stuff once a
mhm,
week or a couple times a month so that it helps support the mission of we need to hire. Well, we've got all this wonderful collateral online about we're a great employer. And so to me, it is so essential to think of this as being proactive because you're always going to want more sales. You're always going to
mhm.
want more web traffic. You're always going to want more employees to apply for that wonderful job
Sure.
you have. Now, the next step in this is so often, as I told you before, I have a lot of toe dippers. And you probably never heard this before, but that's what I call them. People say, well, Chris, you talk about ads or email or vertical video or whatever the thing is that's trending right now. And I tried it. It doesn't work. And my argument is it does work. And in fact, it works so well that you need to be doing more of it. And I'm like, well, but it didn't work for me. I said, that's because you're a toe dipper. You tried it. And a lot of people do not like stepping outside of their comfort zone.
Sure.
And so we have to be comfortable because, as you know, in marketing, there's new trends and new tactics that come along all the time. And
Mhm,
if you're early adapter, you can really take advantage of that. Like if on TikTok you would have posted 5 years ago, you would
mhm,
probably have 10 or maybe 50,000 followers on that platform. So often, the best example I could give you is Chris, I ran an ad. It didn't work. We tried a couple times. Well, typically $5 a day, $10 a day, it's not going to cut it. Most often, I see that in combination with um, a stock photo, something they found on Pexels or Google, and it's a very generic image that has almost nothing to do with their business, or they're just too focused on trying to sell. And I know that's part of what an ad is for, but people don't like 20% off. They don't like spammy tactics. So what I'm
mhm,
getting at here is you have to proactively, you have to run multiple ads, different types of creatives, different types of copy and calls to action, different audiences. Then you can tell me after 3 months, we spent $1,000, Chris, it wasn't very good. Well, I can then help you diagnose why because I now have some data and you have some data as to what worked better than the other one. And
mhm.
so a lot of times it just comes down to not spending enough money and not having good targeting, which means the type of people or the interests and things that demographics, such things like that. So don't be a toe dipper, is what I'm getting at. Obviously, we mentioned your budget is too small. I'm
Mhm.
going to recommend about at least $20 a day at a minimum if you're starting, if you're a small business, and over the course of maybe 7 days. Turn that off, run another campaign, and then compare the two or three. Because again, if someone sees the same ad over and over and over, they're eventually going to tune it out. So you want to be conscious of not running the same ad in perpetuity because you want to keep people on their toes and keep them interested. So if you're gonna jump in and you're gonna
Mhm,
you're gonna dip your toe, you might as well just jump in the deep end. So when I said you have to make an investment, it's an investment of time, it's an investment of
mhm,
money,
mhm,
and it's a commitment saying, I'm gonna be consistent over a long period of time because I see so often as people say they make the commitment and after a month they're like, it didn't work. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm doing
mhm,
here. And so let's jump in the deep end and let's go for a swim. And so when I talk about content, and I know I told you before that content is really important. The photo on the right here, my right, is a local restaurant. And the photo was taken by an amazing photographer. And it's a double. Wagyu cheeseburger with an over medium egg. Now, I like cheeseburgers. I eat meat, brioche bun. To me, that's something I would love to have with fresh cut fries. The one on the left, while not terrible, is probably something I'd expect from a Buffalo Wild Wings or a fast food joint.
Mhm.
It's okay. I would eat it, but it's not going to make me do anything. The content on the right is almost thought provoking. It provokes a
Yes.
thought or a feeling saying, oh, maybe I am hungry. I'm going to go out of my way now to get that because the content is so good. So, what I say and I ask my clients is, what does your content say about your business? Have you ever asked
Mhm.
anybody and said, what's your first impression? Because the one on the left is not bringing anybody into any
Mm-mm.
restaurant whatsoever. That's what I would expect at best at a theme park. And oh, by the way, most theme park food is not very good. So
You're right.
if you think you're a great restaurant or a great spa or the best social media consultant, you need content that matches the service or the product that you provide your clients. I'm going to take a quick pause because I know I've just thrown a lot out there and I've got about double the amount of slides to share. And I want to just pause and see if there's anything there you'd like to go deep on.
I don't know about others here, but one of the things that strikes me is that you're looking at um, the the emotion or the emotional
Yep.
reaction, because the one on the left does absolutely nothing for me.
Correct.
But the one on the right, I want to know where that restaurant is,
Mhm.
because that looks amazing. So, is this saying that we are finding what the unique attribute is that differentiates us from the generic?
Excellent point slash question. And I would say yes. So a lot of what I talk about with my clients is what is your point of difference? So, and this is
Mhm.
something I have in a different presentation, but I'll bring it up because I think it's relevant here. Is so often we as businesses on our website want to say best restaurant, best spa, best marketing agency. Well,
Mhm.
that's not up for us to determine. That's actually up for the consumer or your customer to determine. So when I see someone says best cheeseburger or best whatever, I say, okay, well, everybody says that. So
Yeah.
because everybody says it, I take it with a grain of salt. What I want to know is what makes you different because obviously in
Mhm.
every town, if we're going to stick with the cheeseburger analogy here, I can get a good cheeseburger in any city in this country, in America, or wherever you are. And so I want to know what makes the experience. And if I'm a restaurant, the experience is what I'm going to sell. The
Right.
food too is helpful, but I
Right.
want an amazing experience because when I go out with my wife on a date, we want to sit there for a couple hours, have good conversation, feel welcome, feel comfortable,
Mhm.
have great food, nice ambiance. It's a bit of a mixture of things that make it a great experience. And so when we're talking about what we are, who we are, what we do, I always say that if you're good, you're average. If you say you're best, that's good. But if you say you're different, that's best. So good, better,
Mhm.
best to me
Mhm.
is, well, we're better. That's fine. I don't know what we're comparing that to. Well, we're best in
Right.
class. That's
Yeah.
okay. Everyone says that. But
Yeah.
different to me is best. So tell me how and why you're different. And then I can probably associate that, well, you're probably better. And so
Mhm.
that's what I want. I can go to any sports bar and they're pretty much all the same. But if you can tell me why your sports bar is different, okay, now you have an advantage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're so
differentiation is
right.
is really key. So
Yeah.
I'll use me,
Go
for
ahead.
example. On my LinkedIn profile, if you go there now, and it took me a long time to come up with, I mean, I knew that there were millions of marketing consultants in the world just like me. And I don't just compete with people locally, I compete with people all over the world.
Sure.
And my tagline became, and this is when it really hit me, was digital dreamweaver because I'm a dreamer and I weave a lot of things into different
Mhm.
strategies because everything's a little different. But more importantly, my tagline is I make marketing so easy it's fun again. So easy you'll have no excuses. And so that to me was something no one was promising. And that's what I can do. I can point out the 10 to 15 things that will make it so easy. It's going to be fun. And by the way, it's always fun when you're generating results. And this is a big part of it. This is something you need to adapt into your business. And a lot of it starts with our content.
Yeah, so it's about how you are different from the competition, from those generic burgers that we can get on any corner.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I agree with you. You know, if we're going out, you know, and you're going to be watching sports, there are sports bars everywhere. I want to know what's going to make that experience different for me.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. And the other thing, while we're on content, is stock photos. So
Uh,
I've been very fortunate that I've been on some stages to speak locally and nationally, and a lot of people will use the one on the left because it doesn't have a face. I could have
mhm,
used that on my homepage because I didn't have a lot of recent photos from some of my speaking engagements. Now, while the one on the left is good, it's professional, the one on
mhm.
the right shows that I actually do what I say I do. Everyone can say author because it's easy to publish a book now. Everyone can say, which I am, but everyone can say public speaker, big deal. But if you can show pictures of yourself in a large audience, you have lots of credibility. And by the way, people want to see you. And I will say this is the one reason why people get turned off or not is stock photos. And more importantly, we connect with people. We do not connect with businesses. So on,
Mhm,
on an emotional human level, which is a narrative we're talking about now, there's no business I can say that I have a real strong emotional or physical connection to. It's the people within the business. It's the
mhm,
reason why I have the affinity for, like, say, Apple, because I like the simplicity of what they do. I
mhm,
like Chevy and GM because I've had their vehicles and they've been very trustworthy and reliable for me.
mhm,
But I don't really have an emotional connection to any of them. It's just I happen to like it. And
mhm,
so when I think about the businesses I am connected to, it's actually the people within them who have been open, vulnerable, visible, and have been able
mhm.
to build and want to create a relationship with me, the customer.
Yeah, I can really see that, and your point here about the stock photos is, you know, I've been hearing this. I've been hearing that people were moving away from stock photos on social media, that they didn't have the same impact. And something like this, I would also think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, that being able to see your face, being able to kind of look at how you operate would have more impact than a stock photo that's showing someone anonymous, you know, talking in front of. I mean, that could be anyone.
Right.
But here we're
Exactly.
seeing you, and we're getting a sense of how you interact. You know, you don't have on a tie. You're, you know, kind of, you know, what we call that, office cat. I can't remember, casual Friday or office. I
Yeah.
can't remember what they used to call that, but yeah. And so I would gravitate much more to the photo that you're showing on the right, because that gives me a sense of who you are.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right, 100%. And they don't have to be perfect. That one does happen to be from a DSLR, but this is what I see so often
Hmm.
is the very generic. And by the way, no call centers look like that. No office. These are all very cheesy posed photos. This
Yeah.
is not realistic at all. And so a lot of times when people see it, the first impression is this even a real business?
Yeah.
Why would like, and a lot of people don't want to be featured. A lot of business owners, especially those that I know who are 55 plus, especially, like,
Hmm.
I don't need to be the face of my business. But the truth is, you are the face of your business and you need to be because
Hmm.
people want you. They want to work with you. They want to see you. They want to talk to you. Therefore, you have to. And if this is my first impression, there's a very high probability I'll move on to the next website, and I actually will highly likely not work with a business who has nothing but stock photos. And that's just a
Yeah.
personal feeling, but I do think a lot of other people feel that same way
Well,
as well.
and you know, looking at the photos you were showing, yeah, my first question is, well, when did they work?
Yeah, yeah,
Because nobody's working in those photos.
right, right. Now, if you're thinking about that and you're like, well, that's still, I haven't checked the boxes on any of these. You're doing really well. But the next one that most check the box on, unfortunately, is they're too focused on selling. And I've had literally
Mm,
really good businesses say, well, Chris, isn't that what social media is for? The answer is no. Social
mm,
media is social, which means conversation, communication between two people or a business and a person, or and media, which means content. So photo, video, text, whatever it might be. And it is for consumption, entertainment, inspiration, education, et cetera, et cetera. But when we use social media to sell, we end up turning people away. We end up with more unfollowers, unsubscribers than we do with anything. And people say, "Oh, Chris, that's not true." Well, if I'm going to sell anything, I save it for an advertisement. So if I'm going to run ads or boost posts on Facebook, that's where I'm going to focus on. Website builds $100 off, and I don't do any of that, but that would be one example. But at the end of the day, the question I would ask people is, do you actually want to consume an advertisement? Do you like TV ads? Do you like radio ads? Do you like to be interrupted? The answer is no, because my inbox is full of 20% off. And by the way, that's the norm. So I don't buy anything unless it's 20% off. Thank you, Kohl's, for setting the precedent on that. So you become white noise. So again, if I want to sell, and this is the question everybody asks, well, oh yeah, I want to sell. I sell by indirectly selling. And here's the last thing I'll say, and I'll leave you thinking on this one is, I add so much value to my followers' newsfeed that as a byproduct, they want to reach out and they want to say, hey, Chris, can you tell me more about that marketing consulting thing that you do? You make it real easy, because it's not easy for me. Or, hey, I've been following you for a long time. I really want to know more about what you do. And I'll tell you, now that I've focused on my personal brand and I'm adding so much value and I'm teaching and educating and inspiring people, now people are coming to me rather than me constantly spam people in the DMs and 20% off and promotion here and promotion there. The more you do that, the more you discredit your business. And so you need to be focused on adding value. I sell by indirectly selling. So this would be a big no-no. And then the next thing is, we don't put the social in social media. We post and ghost. So it's a lack of what I call social listening. When I post something and I get comments, I end almost every single comment. Even if it's like, oh, that's a great post, thanks so much. I might say, well, what did you like about that? Oh, I'm so glad I was able to inspire you. And then I might ask a follow-up question. And so I'm always trying to steer up more, because, oh, by the way, the more comments you have in a post, the algorithm likes that. And they say, oh, well, there's a lot of engagement here. Let's show it to more people. And I'll try to keep that thread going as long as possible and as far as possible. But what we post shouldn't be what I like or what you like. It needs to be what your customers and followers like. And those are oftentimes two different things. Sometimes it's somewhere in the middle, where half the stuff I post they like, half the stuff I post I like, and they're like, this is okay. So we need to listen. We need to be in tune with what they want and what they're interested in, because it's what I call digital self-awareness. If your content's not generating engagement, it's probably because it doesn't resonate with them. It's not relevant.
Yeah, I really keyed in just before you said that. I saw digital self-awareness, and there's a lot of power in that phrase. Because I see so often, well, it's so easy to adopt what someone else is doing. And I think when we first start out on social media, or at least I did, I won't say everyone else did, but one of the first things I did was look at everybody else's profiles, and try and understand what they did and how I compared to it. But in actuality, yes, I need to know how I compare to what they're doing, but I also need to know what my unique strengths are.
You do.
Yeah. And so I wonder if you could you talked about knowing your brand, and that selling is kind of an offshoot of that, or it's indirect selling. Could you speak just a little more to that about your brand?
Yeah, my specific brand? Yeah, so since I left the agency world about 4 years ago, I haven't actively tried to sell my services one time through social media. And people say, well, that seems a little crazy. Like, why wouldn't you? Well, I, as a personal brand and a business brand, because those are two different things, I, on LinkedIn, Alignable, YouTube, TikTok, not so much on Facebook. I keep my personal Facebook for my friends and family, and that's it. But on those other platforms, I am very active. I'm very visible pretty much every day, at minimum 5 days a week. I'm posting at least 2 or 3 times a week. For a while there, I was posting 5 days a week. So people know who I am. They know who I am. They know what I do. in terms of being a marketing consultant. So nobody should ever be confused, like, what is it that you do? Because I
Mhm.
post so much thought leadership content, and it's a lot of videos, it's a lot of inspirational posts. Everything is hashtag digital marketing or digital marketing inspiration.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, I
I
hadn't thought of
post
that.
I
Yeah.
post newsletters. I have a podcast, and so I am very active, very visible. And I feel, and this has happened, but it takes a long time, is that after a while, people say, "Wow, you've added so much value to my news feed that now that I have a need." And by the way, I only want to work with people who have a need. If they
Right.
need a website, then I would love to work with them. But if I have to try to sell you the website, it's probably not going to be a great customer, and it usually never is. So when people are ready, I would like to work with them. And if they want to work with me, I want to work with them. So if
Yeah.
someone's like wishy-washy on price, I will allow people to come to me. And at that point, it makes for the best customer relationships, the best experience. And those are the people who leave the testimonials. On the contrary, when you're always on offense and you're always shooting out promotions, you end up getting a lot of customers who don't value your time or your service,
Mhm.
or they're trying to beat you up on price and negotiate, and they want things faster, and they want to make ton of changes, and they're more difficult to work with, and they cancel meetings on you. I really try to focus
Mhm.
on the people who are ready and want to work with me. And that has allowed more and more interest in my services, and that takes time, comes with confidence. But I would
Mhm.
say that the more that you are positioning yourself as a thought leader, the better. Now that comes with some infrastructure, like having a personal website, having some
Mhm.
digital downloads, optimizing your profile, posting really intelligent, thoughtful content, thought provoking content, and
Mhm.
also being social by engaging and interacting with others, because social engagement is reciprocation. If you post
Yes.
and ghost and you don't comment on anyone else's stuff, why would anyone want to comment on your stuff? And it's just
Exactly.
like saying happy birthday to your friends. If you say happy birthday to all your friends, they're going to wish you a happy birthday because people tend to reciprocate. But
That's
if you
right.
use it one way, as a very passive way, you shouldn't expect a whole lot of engagement. You'll get some, but it'll be bare minimum. And you'll always be scratching your head as to why my engagement's not growing. It's a two-way street. That's why.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense, and getting that feedback is always, so important. But that mention of engagement, because it doesn't matter what social site you're on these days, it is all about engagement.
Hmm.
And getting people into that conversation, whether it's like we're talking right now where we're on screen, or whether it's through writing, back and forth. But it just seems that is the question that I get asked more than anything, is how do I get more engagement? And I think you've answered part of that. It's responding, it's keeping the conversation going,
Hmm.
it's showing curiosity about what they're saying.
Well, the first stage of the funnel or of a customer is typically awareness and then
Mhm,
engagement. And
mhm,
so if you can continue the conversation by commenting on their post or
mhm,
comment, and then cultivating a relationship. So maybe sending them a DM later on, thanking them for their engagement, whatever it is, they
mhm,
become more warm to your business, to your brand, to you, and then more inclined when they see a promotion or they see a new product to want to purchase from you. Most
mhm,
people don't purchase a professional service or professional product from the first appearance, from the first time they've seen it. So when
mhm,
they build warmth and they work their way through the funnel, the more they say, "Oh, I like that brand. They always comment back on my posts." Well, there's a
mhm.
reason for that.
Yeah, they're smart.
But it takes work is what I'm getting at, and a
Oh,
lot of
yeah,
people aren't willing to
absolutely.
put that work in.
Yeah, and that absolutely, when people ask me about that, that's the same thing that I say, is get out there, start interacting, particularly now I am primarily on LinkedIn, but they are always looking at that, and
Mhm.
always looking at the engagement. And they will limit your reach, as you said, if you are not getting that kind of response.
Yep.
So Chris, this has been just so informative. And I know that you have a 15-minute audit. Is that
Yeah.
correct? I don't have
Yeah.
the link for that.
That's okay. There's a lot more to this conversation, and if
Okay.
you're interested in learning more about this, I would encourage you all to go to my personal website, which is iamchrisburns.com. iamchrisburns.com.
Love
And
that.
there's a link at the top that says book now. That'll take you to my Calendly link, and there is a 15-minute audit. So what I do, there's no sales pitch unless you want it, is I meet with you virtually. We go through whether it be your website, your social, all the above. You can ask me any questions you want. I'm a complete open book with my feedback and my opinions on what you can do to elevate your digital. And I'd love to meet with you. I'd love to connect. I also have a podcast I'd love to just throw out there too. We talk a little
Oh
bit more
yeah.
business and leadership. It's called Hustle Nation Podcast
Oh, I
or
love that. Special Nation.
hustlenationpodcast.com. We do talk
Wow.
some branding and marketing, but it's a lot of entrepreneurship, business, and leadership
Yeah,
stuff.
that's great.
And a lot of my framework and recipe that I talk about here bleeds through into all that stuff.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up your podcast. I can't I
Cool.
can't wait to hear from you. So if people want to connect with you, they can either go to your website. I am Chris. Is that what you said? I am.
Yep. I am
Yeah.
chrisburns.com.
Okay. And they can either go to your website or they could connect with you on LinkedIn, right? They could
Yeah.
write
So
to you.
it's in / Chris B. Burns. There's two B's in the middle. And I've got the little thumbprint right behind my headshot as the background. And like I said, I post daily and love to connect with you. Shoot me a message if you're interested.
Yeah, everybody take Chris up on this because I certainly am. I'm going on your LinkedIn profile right now and clicking that bell so I will be notified, when you have things out. Chris, this has been so informative. I can't thank you enough. The common thing that I'm hearing from everyone is you need to be yourself, you need to be authentic,
Hmm.
you need to know and you need to have that strategy. And that's something that I think we all kind of back away from at times because strategy sounds hard.
It's not.
Yeah, I know. It's actually and I loved that you said that the best strategic plan only takes 2 pages. I'm going to go back and look at mine again, or your best marketing strategy plan. So,
Well, let me leave everybody with a thought here about strategy specifically is that
mhm,
we as business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, whatever your title is, and I'm sure it's any one of those things or then some, is we tend to make things more difficult than they actually are. Most things that we try to accomplish, whether it be starting a podcast, starting a blog, building a website, they're actually fairly simple things. And
mhm,
sometimes we make them difficult by trying to do them ourselves when we should be hiring a professional. But a lot of times, the most effective way to do something is the most simple way. And what I
mm,
mean by that is, I used to build 30-page strategies and I thought that they were fantastic and there was so
mhm,
much information. But when I got to wondering why my clients, when I'd follow up in 6 months, why it's like, oh, it was great, and I liked it, but they weren't using it, and just because it was
mm,
overbearing, it was overwhelming, as most strategies
mhm.
are, even a 10-page document. And
Yeah.
so I got to the point to where I said, "Look, I'm gonna make this the most simple thing of all time. I'm gonna put, and not an 8-point font either. I'm gonna put the 10 most important components on one page, and I'm gonna give it to you. And if you cannot achieve this, you're probably not capable of success." And
Okay.
I say that sounds negative, but if it's distilled down to these are the 3 to 4 things you need to do, and we create an implementation plan, it gets done. If I just tell you to do one thing this weekend, there's a higher probability it gets done than if I tell you you've got 4 things to do this weekend. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
because we wear a lot of hats, and I know it can be stressful, and I know we get a lot of distractions. I have 3 kids, 2 dogs, a very busy wife who travels, and a home to take care of, a yard to cut, things like that. And I want to do it all, but I can't, right? I'm
Mhm.
only one person and I'm far from perfect. I've accepted that a long time ago, but I have to say, okay, what are the 2 things I can get done today? that I have to get done today that are going to get me toward the next step. And so I become very next step obsessed. And I try to pick the high hanging fruit, not the low hanging fruit, which is responding to every email that you
Right,
think has to
right,
be
yeah.
responded to. It's what is going to help advance my business, or in this case, advance your social media. And sometimes we have to go in, we've got to tackle the big thing first in the day. And that is being strategic. That is saying,
Mhm.
okay, here's my strategy right next to my monitor. The big thing I got to do is X. I gotta do this, and I'm not
Oh,
gonna
that's
avoid it.
great.
And you become next step obsessed, and you will achieve success. I can promise you that.
Next step obsessed. I love that. I really do, Chris. That is just so helpful. I think I'm gonna go embroider it on a pillow.
You
Um,
know, maybe I should start using that more often. Print some
yeah,
T-shirts. Next step
exactly.
obsessed.
Exactly. Listen, this has been so helpful. I cannot thank you enough. And everybody, be sure and follow up with Chris. I'm going to be following up with you because I just feel I'm so excited about having met you and us being able to pull this together. So thank you, Chris. And
My pleasure.
everybody, if Chris is not connected with you right now, go to his LinkedIn profile, tell him you saw him, or better yet, go to his website and sign up for that and do that audit, because I think that sounds amazing. So
I
Chris,
actually have this as a master class on my website if you're
oh,
interested.
do
So
you really?
yeah,
Okay. Oh my
little teaser
God.
there.
No, Chris, that is amazing. That's wonderful. So tell me just a little bit about that class before we get off the.
Yeah. So basically, I've got the 10 reasons why your marketing's failing in this slide deck. And then I give you some of my framework on how to get started with tactics that do work. I also have another one on strategy, which is they're very much intertwined. But if you're thinking, okay, I want to know why my marketing sucks, because before you can build a strategy, you do need to know why it's
Yeah.
working or why it's not. And sometimes we've got things that are working and things that aren't, so that's a bit of an audit in itself. And
Hmm.
then you start to look at, okay, well, yeah, I'm probably guilty of a few of those things, but what are some tactics right now that are really working for people? And that requires us to pivot and change a few things on our social
Hmm.
strategy. That's okay. That's all part of being successful, is always evolving. So I point
Hmm.
all those things out. So I think that in this 1 hour masterclass, if you consume that, you will have some really good self digital awareness, as I call it, and then you'll have some takeaways, probably 3 or 4 that you can say, "Wow, I can really start to implement this right away." And the
That's
stuff that I
great.
teach, it doesn't require you to hire someone or hire an agency. These are things you can do on a bootstrap budget, which, by the way, most of us have.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you could generate results on a bootstrap budget, by the way.
That's terrific. That's I'm going to go write that quote down right now, and I'll embroider that one on the other
I
pillow.
like it.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I know this is not the last time that we will be talking. So I thank you, and everybody follow up with Chris, because this has just been an amazing opportunity to learn what we may be doing wrong and how to correct it. So Chris, thank you so much. And I look forward to the next time we talk.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having
Okay.
me.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.